Listen. Short story long.
Welcome.
It could take your whole life.
Preach.
Develop clarity.
Second, patience.
If it scared you, you should probably do it.
Whatever you think you don't have, you have something else in its place.
Listen. Short story long.
Go, Woody, go.
Preach.
Listen.
Welcome.
Guys, welcome to the pod.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, man.
I'm excited, man. This is the first time, I don't think I've ever had a Navy SEAL in this office, better yet, two.
Yeah.
So I'm excited,
It's
man.
the first for everything.
And I warned you before we started, I do have a little bit of the I've never talked to Navy SEALs. I obviously respect Navy SEALs so much, and there's such this allure or mystery to the whole thing that I'm gonna ask you some of the dummy questions, and I apologize in advance.
Nah, it's all good, man.
We're used to it.
I bet. Okay, so before we do that, I want to talk about how you guys got here.
Yeah.
Through all that you've been through. You guys are obviously from very different places, right? Where'd you grow up, Remi?
I was born in Western Africa, but grew up in the Bronx.
Got it. And what about you, Nick?
I moved every couple of years growing up.
Yeah.
So I lived in a lot of Rocky Mountain states, and then by the time I was in high school, I was in Memphis. I joined the military out of Memphis.
Got it. So you far from childhood friends.
Far from it.
But came together with the same sort of goal, I guess. And now you're kind of on this. This is what I love too, is you guys are both on this, how do we take everything that we learned and everything we went through to help other people, sort of together but separately, meaning you didn't write a book together or anything like that. You both wrote your own, had your own separate kind of takes on the thing, but you're able to do these sort of things together, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's part of the brotherhood. I think, in the teams, one thing that we learn is that, it's better to fight alongside somebody than fight on your own. And so when we found out that our books were coming out around the same time, it was why don't we combine forces like Voltron and get after it,
That's good.
Even from knowledge up front, I hit up Remi, and he starts teaching me stuff that I haven't known, because he's been in the industry longer than me. He's been consistently 2-3 years ahead of me.
Yeah.
And we start trading secrets and talking through it, and it's great to see that once you get out of the military and that job's done, but you're moving on. Now we have uncleared space.
Yeah.
We're going to do something else now, but the brotherhood is still real.
Yeah.
Right? We still have that together, which is fantastic. And our books are actually coming out at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been too much fun, man.
Have you guys ever talked to any, or do here's stupid question number one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys or has anyone from the SEAL training talked extensively to the office environment about how to try to create that sort of bond?
Yeah.
Well, let me more of an explanation.
What I mean is the way that you guys talk about the love of supporting each other.
Yeah.
And the love of you're doing two separate things but similar, and being there for each other and supporting each other, training. I wish my staff acted a little bit that way.
Right.
I wish they walked into the office every day truly thinking we are 40 people here fighting the same fight. Is that something that even happens? Do you guys do that?
It's something that I'm sure we'll get into it in greater detail when we start talking about training, but it's something that's beat into us in training. Every guy that goes through basic underwater demolition SEAL training, if you can't learn how to operate as a team, you can't be an individual. Yeah. So if you can't learn how to operate as a team, you won't get through the program.
Yeah.
It's a team-based program. Yes, individuals do quit, but you have to learn how to work together. And so because that's beat into us for months and months and months, by the time you get through it, it's just natural for you to rely on the other guy.
Yeah.
It's just natural for you to carry your own weight so that the team as a whole is effective. So when we get to our team, it doesn't necessarily need to be a conversation or a pep talk. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
How do we ingrain that into more people?
Hey, take them out on the beach and kick them in the nuts a couple of times.
That's it, huh?
Get them to
What was the HR restrictions on that?
No, but it can be done, man.
Even sports teams,
as
even
far as as far as
Yeah.
methodologies to actually do this thing, one thing that we have in common, to break it down into a word, is shared experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're going through Hell Week together, we're not sleeping for 5 days. We're running 200 miles. We're doing all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Remi knows for a fact, no matter what we're doing tomorrow, I'm not quitting.
Yeah.
He knows I got his back.
Yeah.
Like, if you fight me, you got to fight me for 5.5 days. You fight me and Remi together, it's going to take 11 days.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to work out, right?
Yeah.
And that's because of that shared experience. And that is something that you can relate to the corporate world. You can relate to the athletic world, but it's a systematic approach that you have to understand why it works, how it works, and then it takes some due diligence to get it done. But it can be done.
Yeah, it's just so, I don't know. It's something that's so rare. Like, I've obviously talked to a lot of people on this podcast and stuff like that. Even just the way you guys started with like, yo, we got each other's back, we're going for that. Like, it's just rare. It's something I wish there was more of.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough of that. We'll get into all that.
Yeah.
I want to go through like how from sort of childhood, where you were each born and raised, to joining the SEALs and where you guys came together. So let's just do that one by one.
Yeah.
Nick, you want to go first?
Sure.
So give us the breakdown of where'd you grow up, brothers and sisters, parents, what was the environment, what were you into?
That's what I love about your show too, is like, laying that backdrop, man.
Yeah, I want to feel it.
Yeah, so I have a sister, older sister, my mentor growing up, right?
How
really,
much
an older
older?
sister just means that she's going to beat up on you. That's all that means.
How much older was she?
17 months. And
Oh,
I
wow.
remember to the month
Close.
because of she ingrained that in me at an early age.
Yep.
We moved every couple of years. My dad, people always ask me, was I a military brat? But no, it was worse than that, man. Like, he was in retail. So, and he was climbing his way up, and he was a phenomenal leader. So we moved a lot. We didn't even have the guarantee of orders to stick around for 2 years. It was like whenever we needed to move, we moved. And I think one thing that I got from that experience, there were a couple really positive things that I got from that. And most of them come in the form of like a defense mechanism. So when you have to leave everything that you've ever known, become uncomfortable, and then break into a new environment, you're going to start to rely on a couple tips and tricks that you've seen work in the past. And you're going to get better at them. You're going to refine them. You're going to sharpen that blade. And I got really good at it. I've always been a social guy. And a couple of the tips and tricks that I've used is levity. Humor always works in any room. Humor is going to equalize everyone in the room.
Yeah.
And it can be used effectively. The other was athletics. I always played sports, usually 3 seasons. So when I would move into a new spot, I had my band of brothers immediately because we were united. I wrestled, I played football, and I ran track. And that made the transition a lot easier. So from an early childhood development perspective, I saw those things work early on, and those are some of the elements that I've taken with me moving forward.
And what about, so sports was your big thing. How did you do in school?
I was horrible.
Really? Like, how horrible?
Dude, like, the fact that, like, some of the institutions I've been a part of since, just don't tell them. But, yeah, I figured it out. But no, I was so bad because I would spend so much more time thinking about extracurricular stuff. I had a band. I played guitar.
Wow.
I played sports. Like, I spent so much time developing skill sets that didn't have a grade attached to it.
Yep.
That my grades really suffered. And I had the ability to learn quickly, so I could show up and pass a test and not show up to class. And this is something that hindered me all the way through high school, like, because they would always dock me a certain number of points for having not showed up to class. That hurt me in college too, before I eventually dropped out of college. But that hurt me. I would make A's on exams, and then I wouldn't show up to class because I said, if I can make A's without showing up, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
And they would drop me down to a C. Yeah. So my grades were always poor.
Got it. And then what about, like, did you get in any trouble? Did you get any, how were you with your parents? Were you a good kid? Were you a...
Goody boy.
Yeah, I was a goody boy. I had a strong mom, and I had a good father. I had a really strong mom. And that helped provide me that moral compass. I kind of came up in church too, and I think that helps quite a bit.
Yep.
But me and a couple of buddies of mine growing up from the wrestling team, we were all a little bit rough. And the older brother of these two guys, they're still in the military, so I can't say their names, but the older brother gets this crazy idea when we're in like junior high. Dude, we should be Navy SEALs, And I was scared of this guy. I went and saw him like take a guy over his back and like injure a dude, and they pulled in this ambulance and loaded the guy up and took him out. I'm not going to argue with him,
You're like, all right, dude.
I'm like, all right, I guess we're doing that. But yeah, he got this crazy idea. And from then on out, we started kind of gearing our entire lives around how do we prepare for that. So like, I think it was freshman year of high school, a group of about 5 of us. My mom dropped us off. This is in Tucson, Arizona. There's a giant mountain called Mount Lemmon. It goes up to the height of Colorado and drops back down the other way. We had this crazy idea to do a 40-mile hike. My mom drops us off. We go up and over this mountain. Before we knew anything, we're carrying like, gallons of water, canned goods. Nowadays, as operators, that's hilarious because now we have mountain houses. Nothing weighs anything,
Yeah.
Drone support, Back then, man, it was just rough. And we did that as ninth graders, and we made it through it. And it was kind of a harrowing story. And we pushed the envelope in other ways as well. So I did get into a little bit of trouble, but it was all in the idea of preparation.
So you're telling me that in junior high school, somebody said, "Hey, man, we should be Navy SEALs," and you were like, "Yeah," and you stuck to it? Was it like
the power of groupthink? No, no. I mean, the truth is, I didn't really take it seriously at first, but once I started, this is before SEALs were famous, right?
But hey, let me ask you something. Sorry, what exposed you? I mean, I'm just curious.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, was there a movie?
Why do we even know what it was?
Like
back then, there was no movies.
Yeah, but what was it? Was it a teacher? Was it something that was it billboards at schools? Like, what was it? And I'm just asking because from an inner city standpoint, we don't have that exposure.
Yeah. I think, I'll say his first name, but Mike caught wind of Hell Week and Buds. And so when I found out, I didn't care about being a SEAL.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was. But when I found out about this crucible that is Hell Week, I was extremely attracted to that idea. And I think as an athlete, like, one of the things about that was our entire lives were taught self-preservation.
Yeah.
How do I recover? How do I get back? How do I do this? How do I do that? And the idea for 5 days, being able to step away and saying, hey, like, strip me down to skin and burger and let's see what the fuck is left.
Yeah.
That was so attractive to me. I wanted to see what I was made of. I mean, by the time we were through training, I didn't even know what a SEAL was still. Like, I just loved the idea of that crucible.
Yeah. So, and I'm tracking with all of that. So the exposure, you guys had that exposure in the environment you grew up in.
There was a little bit of exposure. So now I'm curious. So
now
we'll
get to it.
Okay,
we'll get to it.
No, I'm just curious because I never got that part of the story.
I don't know what it was to begin with because there wasn't. Nowadays it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But there was no movies back then. I don't remember like what was the first like how I learned what Buzz was.
Billboard that Mike found out.
Was it Rogue Warrior? Maybe it was Rogue Warrior the book.
It was Rogue Warrior.
I'm trying to think, man, because as long as can remember, I've also known it's just been this like mysterious, like when I was a kid in Akron, Ohio, it was this mysterious thing that you knew existed that was the like most elite branch of the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I can't remember where I would have got that either. But I'm curious when we go to your story how that is different.
Yeah.
So did you so you're going on these crazy hikes, you're doing your own little homemade SEAL training. Did you carry that through? Like, what'd you do for college? You said you dropped out of college?
Yeah. So, out of that group, the guys who climbed over that mountain, 2 of the guys had already become Navy SEALs by the time I was going to college, right? So they went in straight after. I went to college at Ole Miss, and because I wanted to get my degree. I thought that was important.
What degree were you going for?
I ended up in business, but at the time, I think I was like philosophy.
The easiest one.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I remember there was alcohol.
Yeah. I just love it. You're like 7 people wrapped into one. Yeah. You're like a Navy SEAL athlete, band,
and a
philosopher,
and
a poet, and a writer.
You're too kind.
So you go to be a philosopher.
Yeah, I'm going to be a philosopher, right? I want to ask why in all the most magical ways I can think of.
Yep.
And then we invaded Iraq in March 2003. Mm-hmm. And I remember just thinking that my 2 brothers are about, they were already through the pipeline. They were at their first SEAL team. And I'm thinking they're going to go to the fight without me, man. And that scared me. Mm-hmm. That scared me. So I dropped out of school that day. And I go to the recruiter's office. And, I told him, I was like, hey, I want to get there as quickly as possible. So this recruiter, he's doing a job. Mm-hmm. He's got these hard-filled billets. There's these jobs that nobody wants to do. He's like, what you look like as a cook. I think you could be a good cook, But he's like trying to talk me into this stuff. And I'm sure being a little guy,
yeah,
like
How
you
tall
can't.
Are you?
I'm 5'8". I'm gonna say 5'5", but I'm lying to you.
That's fine.
Yeah, with these shoes, maybe.
Do you think do you think he was discounting you because he's like?
Yeah,
You do? You think so?
I do. And I'd been at college, so I probably had my freshman 15 going on.
Yeah.
I tell him I'm gonna be a SEAL. The guy's
He's like,
like,
come
okay,
on, little
buddy.
guy, you're a chef.
Yeah, you're a chef. Dude.
Okay, so he tries to sell you all the crap jobs.
No, he sells me successfully.
Okay.
So he gets me into. It's not a crap job. This is actually a decent job.
Okay.
But he gets me working on helicopters. So I end up signing the paperwork and saying, hey, I'm good to go. And he says, by the time you get to boot camp, you'll be able to screen to become a SEAL from there. So I'm on cloud 9. I leave the office. I call my brothers. And I tell them, hey, I'll see you soon. And they're like, wait, what job do you have? Oh, no. Dude, you just got screwed. You just got screwed. And they're like, that's not even a SEAL source rating. So back then, like, you had to have a job that was a SEAL source rating just to go to SEAL training.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember that? And
Yeah.
it wasn't a SEAL source rating. So
So then what do you do?
yeah, I didn't know what to do. So I go back in there. I'm yelling at the guy. He's like, no, you signed the bottom line, dude. You're going. It's over. It's done. So I realized, I was like, check. You know, I'm in this situation right now. There's a lot I don't know. I'm not going to do this, so I need to become an expert at a couple things. So I started looking in the publications. I started looking at the way they do business, and I learned, first and foremost, I wasn't in the military until I showed up to boot camp. So anything I signed before that is just a negotiating tactic.
Yeah.
He didn't have any power over me.
Yeah.
I learned that. I didn't know that beforehand. He was telling me he did.
Got it.
And then I found something that says you can't ship out to boot camp if you have a tattoo within a certain amount of time.
So you went over to the tattoo parlor.
So I went to the tattoo parlor on
did.
Beale Street.
Yeah, I'm finding out more schemes about you as the day goes on. Man.
I know, man, I know.
There was another story I heard earlier today. I was like, what?
You go do press together. You find out a bunch of stories.
You do what you got to do, man.
Right, man.
So that's what you
Or
did.
I could have gone aircrew.
Yeah, you could have did that. That ain't worse than what you told me you did earlier today, though.
All right. We'll get to that.
I ain't gonna say
So
that.
you
I'll say it.
Nah.
But no, so yeah. So anyway, I show up to this thing and I show this guy my tattoo. And I'll never forget the look on his face. I'm like, hey, brother, we're going to have to rewrite that contract. And I show him this thing, and I saw a man die inside. And I was like, nice, gotcha.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, we're going to rewrite this thing, but you need to talk to my boys while you're doing this. And, you know, they kind of worked through that process together. And I ended up with a SEAL source rating, was SEAL in my contract, and I got to SEAL training. And that's all because I recognized the fact that just this guy wanted to stand in my way.
Yeah.
He looked at me. He judged what he saw. I'm just a small town kid.
Yeah.
You know, never going to do anything.
Yeah.
And he makes all these aspirations, and he's deciding what my future is going to be. I couldn't stand for that.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand for that. And I learned something really valuable in that moment, which is that, hey, if someone's saying, like, hey, you can't do this, that doesn't mean no.
Yeah.
It just means you can't do it with them.
That's a good lesson to learn too in that, because in that environment, like if you walk in my opinion, if I agree with that mindset, but one of the few places where I would probably not do that is in that environment, in like a recruiting center. I'd be like, listen, man, whatever you say.
Yeah.
So for you to be like, you know what? No, man, like I can do, like you are getting sort of pushed into this other category that you don't want to be in. And you're like, no, screw that. I want to go do what I want to do. To then go over and get a tattoo so that you have to delay the process is just good, man. You tried and learned the right lesson early, I feel like, on that stuff.
Yeah, that's something that stuck with me.
Yeah.
I was more afraid of not getting to where I needed to be. Mm-hmm. There was more pressure on the inside than the outside, for
Yeah,
sure.
I get it. Okay, Remi, let's talk about you, man.
Yeah.
Tell me how you grew up, moved to Brooklyn, and then how you got to, I'm guessing, a similar, like, sort of...
Yeah. So I was born in Western Africa.
Yeah.
My father, he was a well-known Nigerian engineer, very successful, very wealthy. So I was essentially born into wealth.
Yeah.
He engineered one of the first man-made islands in the world that exists to this day. It's known as Banana Island. The nickname for it is Billionaires Island because a lot of billionaires live on that island. Yeah. And so we lived a life of luxury, traveled the world, had nannies, cars, drivers, just everything. And in 1987, the Nigerian government decided to strip my father of his most valuable asset, the asset that he had been investing millions and millions of dollars in, and that was the island. And a few days later, he died. So when that happened, we essentially went from rich, having absolutely everything, to poor. And that's just, I'm just giving you the short version of the story. There's way more to it. And my mom, she was American. She met my dad in New York City, and they got married, and she moved to the States. She moved to Nigeria. And she was like, there's no way I'm raising my kids here in Africa. So she moved my brother and I to the States, and that's where we grew up, man. I grew up in the Bronx, Fordham, and Sedgwick, right there in the middle of the heat, in the middle of the music, in the middle of the culture where hip hop started. You know, that was my home. You know, that was all I knew, and it wasn't an easy environment. But my mom, she did a fantastic job of masking us from the reality of our situation. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when she brought us back to the States, one of the first things that she did was she contacted a family member of hers. And she said, hey, listen, my husband just died. I have absolutely no money. I have no way to feed these kids. Is there any way you could loan me some money until we kind of get on our feet? And this family member said to her, let me call you back in 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, the phone rings, and the wife of this family member is on the line. And she says to my mom, how dare you ask my husband for money? You know, if you need money, you go through me. And she hangs up the phone on my mom. So here's my mom, you know, her husband's dead. She has 2 kids. She doesn't know how she's going to take care of them. But in that moment, a switch went off in her head. And she was just like, you know what? No one's going to be here for me. I need to figure out a way to take care of these kids. And I can't show them my pain. I can't show them depression. I can't show them that I can't make it. And so every day of my life, I had a living example of what it meant to persevere. But also I had this woman who just did a fantastic job of trying to keep us in a world that wasn't as conducive to success as other worlds are. Yeah. And, you know, with a smile on her face. Yeah. So,
can I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah.
Just because there's so much in that.
Yeah.
So how old were you when your father passed away?
I was 5. So
did you have memories of like the good life? Or?
Yeah, I have a few memories, you know, and it comes in little spurts, you know. I have memories of the house that we lived in. Mm-hmm. I have memories of certain people like Jane. Jane was our nanny, and she pretty much took care of my brother and I, you know, from the time we were born. I mean, obviously my mom did too, but she spent the majority of the time with us. So I have memories of her. And then everything else is just very, very, very vague. Yeah. Very vague.
And so you don't remember like the shift. It's kind of blurry.
Yeah, no, you know, the reason why I don't remember this is, no, I do remember the shift, but what I do remember is just the way it was the way my mom presented the shift to us. Yeah. You know, and I'll give you another example. When my father died, I'll never forget it. My mom placed my brother on her right side and she placed me on her left side. And it was this red couch. And she said to both of us, she said, listen, your father's gone. He's dead and he's not coming back. And the way she said it to us was so comforting that we looked at her as if nothing was wrong. And we said, okay, Mom. And we went back into the room and played. Yeah. Now, it wasn't because she was hard or she was trying to, you know, she didn't care about her husband. Her husband died, she cared. Yeah. But she just did a great job of protecting us from the reality. So when that shift came, it wasn't, to us, it was just like, okay, Dad goes on trips all the time. Yeah. I guess we'll just be, because we did travel back and forth from New York from time to time during the summer. I guess this is where we're going to stay now, and I guess everything will be all right. It wasn't until I was about 8 years old that I finally figured it out, that I finally realized our situation, and I'll never forget that. I was in my bedroom, and I was just looking around at our lack, and we had this lamp that sat on top of this dresser, and it didn't have a shade. You know what I mean? So it was this skeleton of a lamp, and right next to the lamp was a picture of my dad. Yep. In like one of his dress, you know, Nigerian dress garbs or whatever it was called. And I just remember looking at the picture and I broke down crying. Because for me, I associated him, and if he was alive, with us having everything that we would have. Yeah. And knowing that, you know, my mom struggled, knowing that there were times when my mom didn't have enough food to feed herself. She had just enough food to feed my brother and I. Yep. Knowing that there were times when I would go to the rent office with my mom and she would have to beg the person behind the desk, can I just get an extra few days to pay the rent? Knowing all of these things at a young age, I was really that the reality of the shift hit me then and there, you know.
Yeah. And how old were you when you moved to Brooklyn?
The Bronx, man. The
Oh,
Bronx.
sorry.
Come on,
The
baby. I'm
Bronx.
just- Yeah, it's the Bronx. It's
Sorry,
the Bronx.
I apologize.
It was 5. It was 5 years old. It was 5. Yeah.
So it was right after.
It was right after. It was right after.
And then what about like, geez, so your earliest memories, for the most part, are growing up in the Bronx.
Yeah, growing up, my mother, my brother, my grandmother.
And what, you had a sibling?
Yeah, my brother, Bio. Yeah.
How older?
A year older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that like your
Yeah, it was my
best friend?
He was my best friend, but he was my
Yeah,
worst
yeah,
enemy.
of course. Yeah.
It was funny because in the house, we would fight so much, but outside we would fight together.
Yeah.
And I remembered, one time it was this guy in our neighborhood. I won't say his name, but he was bigger than us, and it was like clockwork. Every summer, he would just try to beat us to a pulp, right?
Yeah.
And me and my brother would just be back to back fighting him and fighting other people. So we hated each other in the house.
Yeah.
But outside of that, and it was one of those things my mom would tell us all the time. When you go out there, you better look out for each other.
Yeah.
All this foolishness in the house, okay, I get that. But out there, don't come back in this house by yourself and tell me that your brother's out there and he's getting beat up.
Yep.
My mom she didn't play. She was real deal,
Yeah.
And so we fought a lot inside, but outside we were.
Yeah. It's funny how that works, right? It's kind of like how you can make fun of your brother, but if somebody else does, it's a big, you know what I mean? It's that like rule.
That's absolutely correct, man.
And then what about like, middle school, high school era? Like, what did you find yourself getting passionate about? What did you like? Were you getting in any trouble? Were you like?
Oh yeah. I was getting all kinds of trouble, man.
What was it like?
So during that time, I would say middle school years. That's when I really, really started getting into hip hop culture. I mean, I got into it a little bit early, when I was around 11, 12 years old. But as I got later into middle school, I mean, it really grabbed me, man. Just Jay-Z, Big. Tupac, Mobb Deep, Busta Rhymes, all of these guys were coming out. And I looked at them and it was as though I was able to paint a blueprint for my life because they came from the inner city just like I did. They grew up in single parent homes just like I did. And, they lived my life. So they essentially became my mentors. So as a young African American kid growing up in the inner city and not having a father or a consistent male role model in my life, I just did whatever I saw or whatever I heard through music. And so I started out stealing, and then that progressed to me stealing from jobs. And then that progressed to me selling drugs. And then that progressed to me running high-level scams. Yeah. So, by the time I was in high school, I had this crazy sneaker scam where I was working at a sneaker store. And instead of charging people on their credit cards, I would tell them, just give me cash. Yeah. And the cash was 50% of what the cost was. And they would give me cash. And that's how I really, that's how my enterprise kind of built. And for me, it was all about money, power, respect, and women. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's what it was about for me. And I was so passionate about music that my ultimate goal was to start a record company. Yeah. And by the time I was 19, I had accumulated so much money illegally that I had a record company. Yeah. I had artists that I had signed to my record company, Eighth Wonder Records. We would go down to Virginia, use recording studios or record down there. We put together a compilation album, and my eventual goal was to shop the album for a label deal. And we would kind of get in there, but eventually the money kind of ran out when I kind of got into a situation that cut off the money for the most part. Yeah. But I was reckless, man. And the funny thing was, in school, I was not stupid. I was never stupid in school. And my mom would tell us all the time, you boys are not stupid. I just didn't apply myself because my focus was somewhere else. But when I applied myself, straight A's across the board. Yeah. And what I would do is, during the early part of the semester, I would not do any work. I would cut classes. I would go do what I needed to do to make money. Yeah. And then the last month to 2 months of the semester, whatever it was, that's when I would turn that switch and turn in extra credit assignments, knock out all my reports, ace my tests, and I would graduate.
Yeah.
The semester on to the
Smart.
next
You knew how
semester.
to game the system.
That was
a
my
little bit.
process, because my brother he graduated high school in 3 years, graduated college in 3 years, and got his master's in 1 year. Jeez. And my father, he was a savant. Yeah. So genetically, I had that intelligence gene, so to speak, but I just needed to apply myself. So I did that every semester, and I actually shared this story in my book. But in my last semester of high school, I cheated the system, but my English teacher, he caught on to the game, and he failed me. And because he failed me, I couldn't graduate high school.
Jeez.
And so I remember going to his office and just getting in his face, and I was like, dude, how come you failed me? He's like, you know why I failed you? I said, no, I don't know why you failed me. Why'd you fail me, man? Yeah. And I tried to get aggressive with him. And he said, Remi, listen, you didn't turn in your assignments. You did this. I said, yeah, I know, but you're not supposed to fail me. And I just kept going on and on. Like, there were moments when I got belligerent. There were moments when I can't calm down and apologize. But I just kept talking and talking and talking and talking, literally for like 15, 20 minutes. Yeah. And he had told me to leave the office, and I wouldn't leave. So then finally he cracked. And he said, okay, you want to graduate tomorrow? I said, yeah. He said, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write a 50-page report as to why English is important in our society today. And I want you to have that report on my desk by tomorrow morning. And if you could do it the way I want it to be done, and if it's perfect, then I might change your grade so you could graduate. And literally, I went home that night, stayed up until 5 a.m, did all the research that I needed to do, got to the computer, type, knocked it out, turned it in the next day. He read it. I graduated high school. Jeez. So going to that point, and when you shared your story, something rose up in me from the perspective of, there's the question arises at times, are people like us born or are we made?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when I heard your story, what you did with the recruiter, it just shows that guys like us, and I don't want to say SEALs, right? Because there are other people who operate at elite levels, right, outside of SEALs. SEALs are not everything, right? And so, but there are people who operate at elite levels who I believe, based off your story, that you were born with it, right? Because there was a switch in your mind when that recruiter played you or jerked you, and then you were like, hey, you think you got me? I'm going to get you. And you turned it on its head, right? And you figured it out, and you got the job done, right?
And it's something that we have in common, one thing that we probably respect about each other. But you're right. Is that something that was learned? Is this nurture, or is this nature? Is it something it's deep ingrained in your DNA? And I would agree with you that it's kind of in there somewhere, because I don't know how to fight that nature. Yeah. I only have one response to that kind of adversity. You hit me, I step up back. I can't.
I figure it out.
Yeah,
right?
I figured it out. I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna get around it.
Yeah.
When you get that barrier in front of your way, man, I mean, there's a couple things that you can do. You can either outsmart it, go around it.
Yeah.
You can elevate yourself. You can go up and over, or you can just bash your face against that wall until the wall gives up.
Yeah,
you know
like
what I mean?
Knuckle
A lot of people choose that route.
Either way, it's not gonna stop you.
No, absolutely.
Remi, I want to ask you too, because this is where I want to tie it back together, because you talked about how the messaging of SEALs and that stuff wasn't anywhere around where you grew up. No. So, I mean, take me through like how you got there, how that thought even got into your head. Yeah. How do you go from finessing your English teacher into your diploma to that?
Well, in 96, in 95, a movie by the name of Bad Boys came out.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And that was the first time I saw two African Americans who looked like me, but they were cool and they were heroes. Yeah. And so when I watched that movie, like, it was as though I was like, I had an epiphany. I was like, man, I don't have to just be a rapper or an athlete or a drug dealer or whatever society has told me because I live in this environment I need to be. Yeah. I could be a hero. I could be that. The next year, a film by the name of The Rock came out. Yeah. And that was the first time I heard of or saw Navy SEALs. Yeah. And I was just blown away. I was 15 at the time. I was like, yo, like, dude, these dudes climbing out the water with rubber suits on and guns. And I'm like, yo, that's legit, man. Like, and there was one black dude. It was one black SEAL.
It was.
With a bald head.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to be that cat, right? But after like 2 weeks, that dream fizzled. It was kind of like a far-fetched idea, you know. Fast forward to how I got into the Navy. I got involved in a deal with a drug dealer that went bad. Sold him some products that were supposed to last for a certain amount of time. Only lasted for a fraction of that time. He came knocking on my mom's door and threatened my life. And I knew this cat. Everybody knew who this cat was, and he wasn't one to play around with. So essentially, I went out into the streets. I made him the money I needed to make him. I paid him back, and I was just like, I'm done with this life, because I'm gonna end up dead on prison if I keep doing this. So for 6 months, I did absolutely nothing. I just laid around in my apartment, my mom's apartment, and one morning I was just lying in my bed, and I just felt this pull. I felt this call. I felt something outside of me. I felt something tell me, you need to get out of here. You need to join the military. And I just remember this battle within me because I hated the police. I hated the NYPD. I had run-ins with the cops. I had been arrested. I had been thrown in jail for something malicious and stupid. I didn't like the way the cops interacted with African Americans in my community, and I just saw a lot of injustice. So I hated the police. So I associated anybody in a uniform, Army, Navy, whatever, as the police. I liked my clothes baggy, my hats backwards. And I hated the ROTC in high school. So, there was a battle within me. But after about 5 minutes, I was just looked around in the room, the same room where I had the revelation that my father wasn't coming back. And I was just like, what else do I have? What else am I going to do with my life? And so I was just like, why not? And so I got out of my bed and I walked down the street I grew up on, Fordham Road, and then I started running as I got closer to the recruiting station. And first I went into the Navy recruiter's office. I went into the Marine Corps recruiter's office because I figured I was going to be a Marine. I sat there for 15 minutes, and somebody's coffee was on the desk, but nobody showed up. So I got up and I left, and I walked down the hall to the Navy recruiter's office. And when I got into the Navy recruiter's office, it was this gorgeous Puerto Rican Navy recruiter, gorgeous. And I was just like, my New York mentality. I was like, yo, what's up, man? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna get in the Navy. Yeah, what's up? What you gonna do, man? What's your name, rank, and serial number, girl? It was like one of those things. And she looked at me like, I'm about to get your foolish butt in the Navy. And so one of the first things she did was, and I'm getting to, I know I'm going the roundabout way, but she had me take an ASVAB practice test. I passed that. And then she did a background check. And then when the background check came back, I had 2 warrants out for my arrest. I had a warrant in New York and I had a warrant in New Jersey. And I didn't even know that I had warrants. I knew that I was doing a bunch of dumb stuff, but I thought I was clear. And so I got up and I got ready to leave, and she asked me, she said, do you have a suit? I said, no. She said, do you have slacks and a collar shirt? And I said, yeah. She said, come back tomorrow. I came back the next day, and she was in her dress uniform, and she took me to both judges. She took me to the judge in New York and the judge in New Jersey, and she advocated on my behalf. She was like, this kid's trying to join the military after an act of war, 9/11, that just taken place a few months earlier. Yes, he made some mistakes, but he still has potential. Can you expunge his record? Both judges unanimously expunged my record. Wow. And then when I went to the MEPS, she fudged all my paperwork in the MEPS because I still wasn't allowed to join, because when you go to the MEPS, you got to fill out this form, and it says, ask you a series of questions, and one of the questions on there, have you ever had a record, and has it ever been expunged or sealed? Check yes or no. And if you check yes, you have to give an explanation. It has to be an investigation, because if your record is sealed, they don't know what it was sealed for. Did you rape somebody? Did you kill somebody? Was it conspiracy for murder? We don't know. And we don't want somebody in the military if we can't find out what you did. And same thing with an expunged record. So she had fudged all that paperwork so fast that I was able to get into the Navy. And when I got in, I went to a Navy SEAL seminar, SEAL at boot camp. I'm sure you guys know, we got some other dudes here who are SEALs too. And the SEAL comes and he gives a presentation to all the brand new boot camp recruits. And this SEAL came into the room, and he put on this video while we in boot camp, showing us all the things that SEALs do. And as that video was playing, like all of that dream that I had when I was 15, like just started coming back. And I was just like, man, because I'm seeing a video of these dudes driving dune buggies through the desert, dudes jumping from planes, suppressor guns, and all kind. I'm like, yo, I'm a dude from the hood, man. I want to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, they get paid to do that. Like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, I'm gonna do it. So, but that's where the exposure came from. The exposure for me didn't come from, and I asked you the question because I know, I'm fast forwarding here a bit, but after I became a SEAL and I would help out with the recruiting thing, like they would send SEALs to suburban areas. You would see billboards. You would see, go to schools and see pamphlets. You don't see that in the Bronx. Right. You don't see that. I've never been to Compton, but I don't think you see that in Compton. But I just know that exposure of that information, it wasn't where I came from. So that's why I asked you where did the exposure come from.
Yeah, and then you said The Rock, and I was like, that's where it came from. I remember that. The Rock came out.
So it was a film for you. So you didn't have a film. There was no other type of information about in your environment. From nobody.
Nobody.
Okay.
I wonder if do you think when they were making The Rock they had to clear that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I worked with Michael Bay on 2 films. The first film I worked with him on was Transformers, and the second one was with him and Ryan Reynolds, 6 Underground. We just wrapped that in December. Yeah. And he works closely with the military.
Got it.
So
they're real careful about all that stuff, right?
Yeah, to make sure everything. He uses tech advisors. I was a consultant on the last film. Yeah. He wants to make sure everything. He wants to honor the military. He's big on honoring the military, so he wants to make sure it's absolutely accurate.
Okay. Here comes the stupid questions, right?
Yeah.
So you guys both sign up. What does it actually look like? Because for me, I understand being a kid and seeing people jumping out of planes and shooting guns and shit and being like, yo, that's going to be me one day. Yeah. But I think when it actually comes down to yo, it's time to go to Hell Week or whatever, however it works, I would probably be scared shitless and probably back out. I'm just being honest. So how does it actually look? What's the first thing you go to? When does Hell Week come into play? How does that go down? And what was it like? And you guys can just kind of bounce off of each other here, because I'm sure that's similar.
Talking about the importance of preparation. You might think about that from an athletic perspective, from a corporate perspective. What does it really mean to be prepared? So from a team guy perspective, what that means is that you go to 2 months of boot camp, then you go to another school learning some job that you're never going to do if you're successful. That's probably 3 months. Then you show up and you go through a month of in-doc, which is just learning where the food is.
Okay.
And then you go through 2 months of first phase, which is where you see the stuff on TV, to where you're carrying telephone poles, you're getting, worked out a little bit too hard and laying down in the surf, getting hypothermia and all that stuff. And you make it through Hell Week. So Hell Week is the crucible there. That's a big deal. That's where most people quit. That's just getting started, man. So once... say an average statistic you kind of hear is if a class starts with around 200, you might have around 40 after that.
40's through Hell Week. Is that what you're
it's
saying?
Not always the same, but after Hell Week, the number gets cut down.
Yeah. Okay.
And then at that point, now you're worth developing. So that's where we're going to start to teach you some stuff. We're going to start to use some of our assets to train you. That's 2 months is first phase. Then you go through 2 months of second phase, which is diving. 2 months of third phase, which is shooting. And that's just the beginning of the whole thing. So now you're in it almost a year and you haven't done anything yet. Then you go to jump school, learn how to jump. You go to SEAL qualifying training, for which is another 4 months. And then you cruise up to Alaska and do cold weather stuff.
Sheesh.
And then you come back and you finally get your trident. Now your trident is that insignia that means that you're a SEAL, right? It's big, gold, gaudy piece of equipment that we wear on our uniforms.
Yeah.
But all in, you're looking at, what is it total, a year and a half?
Yeah.
And then
what is
you go to a
buds?
platoon and you start training with your platoon. It's another year and a half of training from that point on before you ever deploy. So now we can step it back. But preparation, what it takes to actually develop a Navy SEAL, you're looking at 4 years of training before you're ever deployed.
Yeah, so
And what's buds?
Buds is basic underwater demolition SEAL training. So when we say SEAL training, essentially what we mean is buds. So buds is the acronym. And that's the first 6 months.
Got it.
And then, so that's that's the foundation. And where you lose pretty much the majority of your guys, the attrition rate is really, really high.
Buds is what me and Remi both had a hard time making it through.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
And so was there a point when each of you were like, yo, I signed up for the wrong thing? Like, this is too crazy. People are dropping like flies. I can't make it through this.
For me, no. Like for me, I had nothing left. You know, one thing I talk about, I get the question all the time, why is it that so many people who try out for a special operations program, you know, not just SEALs, but other special operations programs as well, why is the attrition rate so high?
Yeah.
And my answer is always the same, and it's because to them it was just a good idea. Yeah. It was just a good idea to go, you know, do some workouts on the beach. It was just a good idea to be part of the most elite fighting force on the face of the planet. It was just a good idea to have cool guns and jump out of planes. But there wasn't a real deep emotional reason as to why they wanted to do it.
Yeah. And
so for me, especially, I had a lot of deficiencies. You know, when I joined the Navy, I couldn't swim. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's an important part of trying to be a SEAL, right? When I joined the Navy, I was skinny as a whip. You know, that's an important part of being, is you got to be, I couldn't do 10 push-ups, right? I didn't have the academic scores. So I had, there was absolutely no reason why I should have become a frogman. You know, I was totally unqualified, right? But I had a deep emotional reason as to why. And so when I started training to go to BUD/S, that reason drove me every single day. I didn't have a car, so I would run 3 miles uphill to the pool, jump in the pool, run 3 miles back home. I didn't have somebody to teach me how to work out, so I would just go to the gym, jump on a pull-up bar, and just make up barbaric workouts just to beat myself and hammer myself, right? But because that reason was driving me. So when I finally did get to training, that reason, that deep emotional reason kept driving me when day after day, when the pain had set in, when we're sitting in the cold water, when guys are quitting left and right. So I never thought about quitting. Yeah. I couldn't. For me, I don't know, I'm a New York cat. You know what I'm saying? So it was just like,
but can't you go to like can't you like quit and go to like an easier part of the Navy or something?
Oh yeah,
like that?
they'll dangle like a warm blanket and nice food in front of you.
They do.
Oh yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah.
But I think we have this in common too. Is like, well, I'll take you one step further too. You know, people say, "Did you ever think about quitting?" I never thought about quitting, and the reason is I was scared to death of not passing the times. I was scared of not meeting the standard. I was so scared of not meeting the standards that I didn't have time to think about quitting, man. Yeah. Because every week in this training, you're doing a 2-mile ocean swim, open ocean swim for time. You're doing a 4-mile timed run. You're doing obstacle course stuff every single week. Yeah. We both struggled with swimming equally. Yeah. I was so scared about not making that happen that I would have gone to any lengths. People say I'll die before I quit. Man, I was all in. That's the hustle you were talking about.
Yeah, man.
And that's got to be the difference, right? For whatever reason, whatever your reason is, it just has to be you either have that mentality. If you don't have that mentality that you both have for whatever reasons, there's no chance.
No. And, I think it applies to almost every aspect of life.
Yeah.
You know,
but that's just such a good, like magnified version of it.
No,
you know
absolutely,
what I mean?
Absolutely.
Did it fuel you more when you saw people dropping out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one guy I'm thinking of right now that was, I'm not going to say any names, obviously. He's a phenomenal human being. Yeah. But he was like an Olympian pentathlete or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. He was a triathlete.
I thought it was pentathlete.
Okay, maybe this is a different
We're going to
guy.
go with triathlete. Either way, he's a rock star.
This may be a different guy.
He's a rock star.
Yeah.
And not only that, but he had like an open door policy. He was cool.
Yeah.
Like everybody loved this guy. He was a pillar of strength in the class.
And the instructors loved him too, right?
The instructors loved him.
Yeah, okay, so
I don't know what that's like, but he got to experience that. So like, this guy, he has an open door policy. He's a man amongst men, you know?
Yeah. And he's a guy you would look at and you would be like,
shoo-in.
That guy's going to make it.
Shoo-in. Yeah. Like, I'm sure when he told his family one day, he's like, I'm going to go be a SEAL. They were probably like, well, yeah, that's the logical progression for you.
That's what we figured out.
What took you so long, you know? Whereas for me, they're like, you sure you don't want to be a dentist? Have you really thought this through, bro? Yeah. Like, he had a different experience. So this guy is just crushing it, too. He's passing all the swims. And he was nice. That's the thing. He was nice. But I'll never forget. We start Hell Week on Sunday night, and it was Monday night of Hell Week. Sun's going down. They tell us all to lock arms, and we walk closer into the water, and then they tell us to lay down on our backs, and the water's coming over us, and it's freezing cold. Sun's going down. You have all the time to think about how cold it's going to be tonight. And we started hearing these murmurs coming down the line. And they're like, hey, old boy's quitting. Old boy's quitting. And I remember looking up and I see this guy who's an Adonis, a man amongst men, like cut from the cloth of Achilles. And this guy is walking down the line to go ring the bell, which is a way of saying audibly to everybody, like, I'm out, dude. You tell your entire class, I'm leaving. When he left, as those murmurs were going down, people started getting up and lining up behind him. Because he was a pillar of strength in the class.
So people were like, if this guy can't make it, there's no way I can make it.
There's no way I can.
Holy
They couldn't quit fast enough. And I'll never forget being little Nicky sitting there in the surf zone, looking at this guy quitting, being like, he's gone. I'm still here. Oh, dude, I felt like I was eating his soul. I am all that is man, dude. I've never felt so strong in my life than that moment.
Yeah, it does give you a boost, man.
It gives
That
you a
has to,
boost.
I would imagine that it has to go one of two ways, right? Because you're either gonna be like, "Yo, this guy's quitting. There's no way I can make it," or "This guy's quitting. Like that means, I'm so much better." You know, like it fuels you. Were you guys in Hell Week together?
Yeah.
So that's where you met.
We met in first phase.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
We
got it.
started together.
Got it.
And we got rolled back together.
Yeah.
We started and failed together.
I started before you, and I got
That's right.
rolled back.
That's right.
Started all over with you in your class.
Yeah.
So that's what happens too. Like if you mess something up, you got to start over.
Kind of. So the first time I went through Hell Week, I almost died. So I had pneumonia, sype, rhabdo, and hypothermia. My core temperature dropped down to 88.8 degrees during Hell Week. So that's bad. So I
No
was
big deal.
Yeah, I was admitted in the ICU for like 4 days. And so because I had been pulled out of training, I received what's called a medical roll. So once I healed up, I started with the next class, but I had to start all over again from day one. And so that was a class that I jumped in with Nick.
And you still wanted to keep going?
I had nothing left.
How scared were you of not finishing? That's not getting there.
What, when I almost died?
No, I don't mean that. Like, well, when you were almost dead, were you thinking more about the fact that this might put your training in jeopardy?
No, because I knew I was going to get med rolled.
Oh, there you
It
go.
almost killed me.
Yeah, you're
man.
getting the system.
I was like, yo.
So even in that, you're laying in the ICU, you're like still thinking about like what this, like how you're gonna get back in. Not like maybe I could like.
No, I was like,
go get a job somewhere.
No, I was like, hey, round 2, let's go.
That's amazing,
you know?
man.
You resort to some dark places, man, when you're trying to get through something like that.
It all
You'll do
boils down
whatever it
to,
takes.
you know, again, I say this all the time, you know, I try to apply anytime I teach on mental toughness, a critical thing. I try to apply these principles that I learned. But when you really, really, really want something, nothing will faze you.
Yeah.
Will you have a setback? Yeah, you'll have a setback. But when you really, truly want something, nothing will make you waver or question what it is that you want.
So,
You know?
and I agree completely. I'm just fascinated by the test, the mental test of this thing. So then there's obviously a moment, right? You were saying where they put the pin on, and like there's a moment of like you did it, right? Mm-hmm. Was that like as much as I would assume of a feeling of like you're much more than what you thought you were going into this thing? Like, did you gain so much respect for yourself and confidence, or did it not feel that way? You guys' reactions aren't looking like.
That's a great question. I never
a good
been asked
question.
that question.
I just feel like I've heard stories, right, of people like crossing the finish line at a marathon, and it's like
For me, yes, especially because of where I came from and, you know, how the odds had been stacked against me, you know, there was a sense of like, wow, you know what I mean? Pride, you know, I got this far, you know, but then there was another side of me that was like, so you haven't done anything yet. You just made it through training. Like,
That's what it is.
But you're officially a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, but you haven't done anything. You know what I mean? You haven't done the job. You just completed the training, right?
You're not done yet. You're just getting started.
Everything just begins. Because what happens to some guys, and, you know, there's guys in this room now, other SEALs in this room now and not on camera, and they'll tell you, you know, we all know guys who they graduate, they go to a team, and they cannot do the job, and they don't even deploy. They don't even go on a deployment. They get kicked out before they even do a deployment, right? That has happened. And so once you graduate, that's not like, that doesn't really check the box completely. You know what I mean? That's just, okay.
But,
and when you go to your team, other guys who've been there for a while, they're like, so what? You graduated from Bud, so what? Everybody else here has graduated from Bud.
You're so cocky when you show up to your team.
Yeah.
And then all these guys who have
Can you
actually
do-
been
can you-
working.
Can you do your job? You
Yeah.
know, can you do your job? And that's what it boils down to. So yes, it, you know, for me it was a sense of respect, but at the end of the day, no, too.
So did you ever get that feeling, or did you just slowly change as people? You see what I'm saying? Like, was there a day
Yeah,
when you
it's
finished?
incremental improvement. I
Yeah.
agreed 100%.
There was never a like, today I'm a different guy.
There was a moment for me that was like that, which was when Hell Week was secured. At the end of Hell Week,
Yeah.
when that was over, and I remember we were lined up thinking we're going to go into the water, and we turn around and they got a big American flag up there. All your friends and family are waiting on you, and you get a nice warm pizza. I remember that was a moment where I was like, this was something.
Yeah.
Not many people could do this. This was something. But then it's on to the next thing. What's next?
Yeah.
What's next? And that what's next happens so fast. Even when you're training up with your boys and stuff, like we might be working on the water this week, but then next week we're going to the desert. Next week we're doing this.
Yeah.
It's always that what's next next play
And
mentality.
then even when you come back from deployment, it's like, okay,
Yep.
it's time to start a whole new training cycle, 18-month training cycle again. 4 months of pro dev, 6 months of ULT, and another 6 months of sit, and then going right back. So it's always,
Yeah.
you're always going.
That's crazy.
You know?
Well,
That's
here's
just
where that
not what I
comes from,
expected.
too. It's like there's a, you know, we have like this ethos. It's kind of our standard.
Yeah.
And everybody has different pieces of that kind of sticks with them. For me, something that I really resonate from that is a piece that says you got to earn your trident every day, right?
Yeah.
That trident, that's that big thing that we wear. It's amazing. It's almost like godlike on this,
Yeah.
on that chest.
Yeah.
And you got to earn that every day, man. It's not about the fact that you made it through Hell Week 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not about the fact that you deployed a couple years ago. It's not about the fact that anything that's yesterday. What did you do now?
Yeah.
What did you do today to earn what you're wearing on your chest?
Yeah.
And that's something that's become so ingrained into our mindset that now as we're moving into the new battle space, into new uncleared space, we have that same mentality with a different application.
Yeah.
How do I earn that today? How do I earn the title of elite today? There's no time for laziness. There's no time
Yeah.
to sit back. The time is now.
Yeah.
And it's been that way since the beginning.
Yeah.
Do you guys keep each other sharp, like with, because this is one thing, once again, I'm jumping to conclusions, tell me if I'm right or wrong, is like, I would imagine when you're going through training and when you're actually on duty and all of that stuff, you obviously have a bunch of people around you all knowing the same ethos, all repeating the same things. When you leave and are now in this world where you guys are speaking and writing books, like, do you keep each other sharp so that
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't get...
No, accountability.
Yeah.
100%. And Nick, you know, he's come up with this phrase, the new platoon, right? And I'll let him elaborate on that. But what I take from it is, you know, all of these guys who are now out now, you know, we have a response. We're all in a new platoon.
Yeah.
It's a new platoon of guys who are now civilians, and we've done the job that we did, but job continues on because now we have to hold each other accountable. And we have, you know, we've been blessed with a platform to be able to encourage positive transformation in the lives of other people, right? Like we're on this podcast now, probably, you know, partly because of the job that we used to have, right? And because we have this responsibility, it's important for Nick to be able to pull my shirt and be like, yo, dude, let's sharpen up, or let's tighten up, or let's not do it this way. And it's important for me to say, hey, dude, how about you look at this business deal from a different perspective? So it continues on, you know, not just with me, but with other guys that I've trained with, that I've gone to war with, that, you know, I just went through buds with, you know, so, yeah.
And then the other question that I have is, like, when you then go on like your first mission or your first real, like shit's real, was that crazy, or were you so well trained by that point that you kind of eased into, that was just the next phase? Like what I would have to imagine that like all this training is nuts, but going on the type of missions that I'm guessing you guys went on is very real.
Yeah, I could probably jump in for that. The cool thing about, and I'm trying not to get too much into the weeds, but
Yeah.
The cool thing about our training before we go downrange is our training is so realistic.
Yeah.
We have a saying, train how you fight. Dive your plan your dive. Right. So the way we train is the way we fight. And so our training is so I mean, we would go out to the desert, out in the desert of California, and do down man drills.
Yeah.
So down man drills is, you act like you're assaulting a target. Well, you're training as though you're assaulting a target, and 4 guys in your platoon get killed, right? And so now you still have to continue this mission with these guys. And sometimes it means carrying these guys, a mile or 2 back, and you're still carrying ammo, and you're sweating, and you're tired, and you're rolling your ankle in dishes, but you still got to go, right? And it sucks. But you train like that so that when you get downrange, it's just muscle memory. Yeah. It's like, I've done this before. I've seen this before. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. So at least for me, and I'll let Nick speak to this as well, but for me, because of how realistic our training is, I mean, people have died in training. Right? We know guys. We all know guys who have died in training, right? Because it's intense, and it's and so because of the way we train, when you go downrange, it's just all muscle memory for the most part.
But it does catch you off guard every once in a while. Like, I'll share with you something. When I actually got out of the Navy, I screened for this contracting program. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I was over there, and I'd done operations and stuff in the military, got a Bronze Star and stuff. It was cool, but I'd never been shaken quite like this. I woke up at 6 in the morning, man, to vehicle-borne explosive devices, like, going off right outside, right there, taking out our little gate. And we were just somewhere kind of cool, not on a base. And it was just real. It happened, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I ran outside. I remember some of our guys that were helping us out, I told them, hey, like, go cover down on that. By the time I got up to the roof to cover them, there was a gator that was bringing a few of them back dead. It happened that fast. It's like, welcome to Afghanistan. Like, that'll wake you up in the morning. So I'm sitting up there on the roof thinking, wow, this is real, It ended up being a long day, man. I mean, it was a really long day. This went on for quite some time. One of the guys had been shot, and we had to take him off and get a helicopter in to save this guy's life, another local guy. And that ended up taking all through the night. So it was almost like 24 hours of being on this thing. And it really rocked me. It really shook me. And one of the reasons was because I was actually in graduate school at the time. So I had finished my undergraduate while I was in the Navy. And then I started business school at the University of San Diego while I was contracting. And I had a paper due that day. So I had done all the research for this paper. And I had been ready for it. I was going to take the following day off, and then I woke up to explosions and this and that. We suppressed the threat. I had to write the professor and say, hey, man, I'm not going to be able to get you the paper today. And I'm thinking, like, this guy's going to think I'm slacking off. He's going to think if this guy gives me a time management speech, so help me God.
Yeah, man.
I was like so worried. So we ended up doing that night, And then I got back the next day, and I'll never forget that feeling of just being so smoked, like in a firefight, 24 hours, just, doing everything that I could possibly do. One of my buddies got shot in the plates, and it was like a scary thing. It takes you to the edge, and it's really tiring. And I remember sitting there, and I opened up my email, and I saw a message from my professor, and he was like, listen, man, I respect what you're doing, and that's no worries. I'm going to give you 24 hours, and after that is 0.
Oh, man.
So I look at my clock, and I'm like, I got 4 hours to write this paper. And I just remember thinking, like, all right, life happened, dude. That was tough. Life happened to me right there. The enemy came after us. They were trying to get something done, check. What am I going to allow that enemy to take? He already took my day. He already took some of my friends. He already took something. Am I going to let him take this paper? Am I going to let him take this grade away from me? I sat down, I wrote a fucking paper, man. I knocked that paper out. I sent it in. It's the best paper I've ever written in my life. I got a decent grade on it, too. It was just one of those moments. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to let the enemy take this away from me.
Okay, then here's my question, too, is like you guys both seem so, like, solid and focused on your goals now, and like, who taught you how to like apply that same mentality back into the real world? Because I would imagine there's some people who don't transition back that easily.
I'll tell you who kind of taught me how to make that parallel was, because that contracting gig, I ended up getting hurt. I hurt my back. I had to get spinal fusion surgery.
Sheesh.
So my identity and my purpose, all those things were kind of taken away from me.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was going to do moving forward. And I needed a brother. I needed a friend to reach out and say, hey, here's a possibility. Remi hits me up.
Yeah.
And he says, hey, I got this group of guys, and we're going in to talk to this corporation. And we're going to teach them some special operations concepts and, some leadership stuff, some communication stuff. And he invited me to come along with him. And that was at a low point in my life. I had pretty much lost everything that I'd been building for so long. And it took a brother reaching out and saying, hey, come with me. And that reshaped my direction ever since that one phone call. I mean, my entire professional life now. I went to Harvard probably as a result of that phone call.
Yeah.
And now that's what we're doing, is paying it forward and trying to enrich people's lives and showing them that, hey, you can be more efficient. Hey, you can create this love. You don't have to have your shields up to each other, right? You can love each other and keep your shields pointed the direction they need to be towards the adversity in your life.
And it was, for me to answer your question, when I got out, I didn't, I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but it wasn't quite panning out for me. And then this corporation that Nick brought up, I partnered with them. I bought part of the company, and again, we would go and we would train, pro athletes, collegiate athletes, other corporations on mental toughness, critical thinking, teamwork, that sort of stuff. And I didn't learn how to really apply the principles that I learned, not just in the teams, but in the military in general, because I spent 13 years in the military, but I didn't really learn how to apply those principles in my everyday life until I started teaching them to other people.
Yeah. It's funny how that works.
It was a real interesting thing. I just remember, teaching a class on communication, communication on every level, effective communication, confirmation when communicating. And I was just like, wow, I learned all of these things in the military. Yeah. How about I apply them not just when I teach them, but apply them in my everyday life. Yeah. And then the same thing with teamwork and goal setting and mental toughness. It was like all of these principles were embedded in me, but I didn't know that. It was as though they were so much a part of me that I wasn't aware that they were there, if that even makes sense. Yeah. And so the more I began to teach them to other organizations, the more I was like, I got it. Yeah. And that's how I began to be able to transition and apply them to my everyday life and everyday business. And then, help guys like Nick and other guys who are getting out to show them, hey, remember when we did this in the military? Hey, well, just flip it on his head and use it in this format.
Yeah. You referenced that new Platoon earlier, too. Yeah. And that's one thing that we're kind of talking about right now is, there are a couple guys, like there was David Rutherford. I reached out to him. He helped me out a great deal. And I needed that kind of support where I was at. So what I've tried to do is just kind of pay that forward to other guys that are getting out. And I had somebody who's technically a competitor hit me up, and he was like, hey, what are you doing? I was like, dude, I'll tell you everything I'm doing. Here's exactly what's going on. Here's how you can make this happen. Yeah. Rising tide floats all ships, man. For sure. Competition is always good in a marketplace. Let's do this together. And so we've been kind of rallying around, and then there's team guys in this room right now. And we were just sitting at dinner talking about, all the possibilities that are in front of us. Yeah. And it's so much fun that we still have that brotherhood. It's still alive, and we're able to pay that forward and help the guys out that are going to be transitioning next year and the year after, because it's a challenging transition. But there's a lot of bright. Man. The media always focuses on some of the negativity. Yeah. There's so much bright out there. There's so much light, man, and that's what we're trying to spread.
Yeah, that's good, man. Like I said, I've spent an hour with you now, but your guys' whole crew, when you came walking in, it feels very it just feels positive, and it feels like, hey, we have this, now we have books, and we have this to talk about, and we have that, and I can tell the way you're talking about it and the way you're talking about supporting each other just feels like you learned all these skills and now can apply them to the real world. It seems really cool and really positive, especially with all the negative that you hear. Right. Was it hard for you guys? Did you have was there an initial shock of having so much, whatever you want to call it, action or so much going on, than going back to normal life without those same threats and without that same high level?
No, for me, no. But the adjustment, I would say from a different perspective. So, being part of the community we are part of, integrity is a big thing. Being on time is a big thing. operating with excellence is a big thing, not just meeting the standard, but operating with excellence is a big thing. So when I got out and I started working in the civilian sector, and when I realized that this norm that I've been used to operating at for most people is this norm, I struggle with that.
Yeah.
You know,
Were you like getting mad at people and
yeah.
Yeah.
And because I come from a community, when you say you're going to be here at this time, either you're there at that time or 10 minutes before or 30 minutes before you're making a phone call and saying, hey, dude, you know, something happened. I'll be about 5-10 minutes late.
Yeah.
So I go from that community to a community where not only is a person not on time, they're just not showing up.
Yeah.
And then it's not just one time, it's 2 times.
Yeah, it'll drive you
and it's
nuts.
3, and then it gets to a point like, dude, you're supposed to be running a freaking business.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? This is how you put food on the table. This is how I put food on the table.
Yeah.
Like, you be on time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or communicating. You know, and my assistant's here, and he knows the issues that we have with companies that we work with, but simple responding to an email.
Yeah.
So it was things like that boil me, and that's why I had to hire an assistant who's here today, who wasn't in the military, right? So that he could be my filter. Because there's times where I'm just like, yo, bro, send an email.
Yeah,
I'm send an email, because if I send an email, it's not going to be a good day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I couldn't agree with that
So
more. Like, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, so that's my,
Yep.
you know, instead of it being hard because for that, the other reasons, you know, the high octane, you know, running around, shooting, blah, 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 and then come in trying to, that doesn't bother me. It's the dealing with, I'm trying to find a clean word, but it's the dealing with
You
food.
can use a dirty word.
I know you're already mad because I,
don't
used
know,
to.
man. I'm just thinking about a situation right now where I'm just like,
Yeah, it's too
you know
close
what I'm
to
saying?
Yeah.
Because it's just one of those things. When you run a business, be professional, be on time, communicate, take care of your people, like keep your word. You know what I'm saying? Simple things.
Yeah,
I'll just leave it at that.
I get it.
So, but
Just for the record, I was here on time today.
You were. I'm not. You were. You good to go. You good to go. That's not the issue. You good to go. I'm not even referring. I'm talking about stuff where
say what
money
you're
is
talking
involved. A lot of money is involved.
Yeah.
And I mean, Brad knows we're dealing with this international situation where a lot of money was lost because somebody decided not to send an email 2-3 months ago.
Yeah.
And a whole lot of money was left on the table. And you ask, hey, dude, like, why wasn't it done? Oh,
excuse.
not just an excuse, not even an apology.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Not, you know what? And not just that, not even a, yes, we messed up.
Yeah.
Just, oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that boils me.
Yeah. I get it.
You know what I mean? Take ownership. And I run into, you know, I've been on, but it's all been a learning lesson for me. But I've just run into a lot of situations where in our community, you have to take ownership. You know, that's something that Jocko preaches all the time,
Yeah,
extreme ownership,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people don't take ownership,
Yep.
you know? So, yeah.
Nick, same for you?
Yeah, well, yes. All those frustrations, absolutely, because we hold each other to such a high standard, you know, like one thing that we say is like, you know, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. It's that friction that sharpens the blade, man. If you're living life without that friction in your life, you're just getting dull. And that's one that the thing that we have with each other. We hold each other to extremely high standards.
Yep.
And if something's wrong, we're going to do you the respect of telling you
Yep.
and letting you fix it.
Yep.
And that's something that is hard to recreate on the outside. But for me, that wasn't why the transition has been a challenge. I think for me, it was more a piece about identity. Like my identity was so wrapped up in what I was doing, who I'd become.
Yeah.
This dream that I had for myself that was going to happen, what I would be like 10, 15 years from now.
Yeah.
And when that got disrupted, and then I had to get a surgery, and then I gained weight, and I lost my physical image.
Yeah.
All these things kind of compounded, and I realized I had no idea what my future looked like. I had no idea what I was going to be doing, and I had lost my identity. That's the scariest thing that's ever happened in my life, was losing that identity. And that's when I kind of had to say, okay, well, what am I going to rebuild? What am I going to create? What am I going to make? And one thing that I've seen as a result of going through this process myself is I have a different lens when I look at other people and the way that they see their identity. You know, one thing that we have, an advantage that we have coming from a special operations background, is that our identity isn't found in here's the way we've always done things. Our identity is found in finding new ways to do things, innovating, trying new things out, staying up top.
Yeah.
And that was a piece of my identity that translated. I could take that with me. Yeah, things looked a little bit different, but there's something that I could pull on with me and take forward. And when I started kind of recrafting, like, hey, maybe there's a lot of stuff that I was that I can still take forward with me. Like, what is Nick Hayes without the trident?
Yeah.
What's left? And it took a couple of years, man. There was like an identity crisis to where I didn't know what I was without the trident. And then when I started really looking at it and redefining what that identity was, I started seeing the potential in the future. Things that I hadn't been written yet, hadn't been decided for me. And I started to see this undefined future as volatile and exciting. Yeah. And that's when things really turned around for me, because I asked myself, you know, who is Nick next after he turns the page? And I liked what I saw.
Yeah. That's good. You can tell this guy just wrote a book, you know, the way he I liked what I saw, chapter
selling
10.
it, man. He's selling it.
Oh, no. That's not the kidding. It was just a perfect handoff. Okay, here's my question.
Yeah.
So you guys have both wrote books now. You speak to a lot of people. I'm sure you get asked a million questions. Like, what do you think is, if you had to each pick the number one thing that you gained from being a Navy SEAL that most people are lacking, what is that thing? Like, if you could give one quality to everyone, other than, you can't choose being on time because you already used that one.
I'm gonna chop your head off.
I know. Yeah. If you could each choose one thing that you think would just help so many people, what would it be?
That's a fantastic.
I got
one.
one.
I got a lot, so I'll let you go first because I need to pick one. So I need
pick one. Yeah, because I know you're thinking a word I'm about to say, but you know, authenticity. I think is it. Like, one thing that we never had the luxury of when we were working together in such tight confines, but also like life or death is on the line.
Yeah.
You can't bullshit each other.
Yeah.
You know each other through and through. And if there's something there, not only do you want it to be found, but you're afraid of it not being found because it's going to bite you. So you tend to show everybody everything because you want to be better. It's not about being right. It's about being better. Right?
Can you give me like a example? You don't have to give me an actual something that happened, but like, what do you mean?
Well, if I have a deficiency, say I'm doing something a little bit wrong every single time, and it's something that I don't understand could amount to a really bad situation for my team. Well, there's no politics at play to where like Remi can just holler at me and be like, hey, come left. There's no thick skin. He's not trying. We're authentic with each other. We're going to share with each other exactly what is. And that's something that I wish. Here's the thing. You should welcome that dissent. If you want to be good, if you want to be great, if you want to be the best possible version of yourself, you should surround yourself with people who are going to disagree with you, who are going to bring dissent, right?
Yeah.
Because you need that 360 approach, man. If you're surrounded by people who love you and tell you everything's great, they're lying.
Yeah.
And you suck.
I agree, man. How do you teach that, though? Like, I'll give you a real example in my comfy little world is we'll be on like an email chain trying to get an order of shirts out, right? And somebody says, no, 300 pieces of large, sent. And one person will literally not like the way that sounded and think that they're being, and I don't know any of this, but they think because I'm on the email chain, they're trying to play them out in front of the boss and show that they're lazy. And so all of this inner conflict and politics.
There's actually something valid there. I mean,
but how do you stop
one thing that's
that
good
shit?
is like you always want to keep conflict at the lowest level.
Yeah.
So if that conflict is happening, the only way for both people to ensure that they are on the same team is if it happens at the lowest level possible. So if it's always happening in front of high-level decision makers, then there's no way. It's impossible to keep the political game from creeping in.
Yeah.
That's one thing that we try to do is always keep the conflict at the lowest level, and when it gets beyond that, this has to be done through policy now, right? But if you can establish that policy, you'll be good to go. One, you don't want to hear that, and then two, you don't want that to be turned into a weapon. So there might be some validity in what they're saying.
But
Man.
how do you guys stop? How do you stop it? How do you stop if you're doing something and Remi says, "Hey, go left, just a couple inches"? You not being like, "Man, Remi has it out for me." Like, how do they
Conversation, man. This is something I say all the time. Me and my sister talk about it all the time because we deal with it every freaking day, man. And you have to be willing to have a conversation with the person that you feel is attacking you.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be able to say, okay, you pick up the phone. And we do this all the time. If I send an email and somebody takes it the wrong way and I see they take it the wrong way, I try not to respond to the email. I try to pick up the phone and be like, hey, check this out. I just want to make sure first and foremost, is everything cool?
Yeah.
Okay, I honestly, I just want you to know I didn't mean the email to offend you in any way. I mean no disrespect. Maybe I should answer it in a different. I think, you know, with emails things get so muddy, but with conversation, when one person from one side who has this perspective comes over to the other side and brings understanding, and that other person is open, and then maybe they bring some understanding that the other person didn't have, that's how things become reconciled. Yeah. And so I truly believe that, I mean, it starts with just having a conversation at times, you know?
And did you have to do that early on when you were, once again, excuse me if I'm terribly wrong in the way I say this, but like training with your initial team or whatever, were there those moments that you guys had to work out and be like, yo, me and him don't have an issue, we're just...
Well, in our community, you don't really have to because we're blunt.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's like, yo, if you suck, you know what? We know it's not personal. Like if we do a house run, which we call it a house run, but it's when you go into a room and you do CQC tactics, which let me sublimate it even more. You go into a room, there's targets in the room, and you shoot those targets, right? You know, simulating hostage rescue or going after a HVT, high value target, right? Yeah. If we go do a house run and he makes a huge mistake, if he steps too far into the room,
which I never do,
which he never does, by the way.
Little legs. It's hard.
He's a frogman extraordinaire, right? But if he steps too far into the room and I step in after him and our muzzles of our guns almost cross, but we finish the drill. After the drill, I'm gonna be like, yo, bro, hey, don't step too far into the room, man.
And you just say, got it.
I'd love him for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, check.
Because normally, you know, in a normal situation, you're like, man, fuck you, too far in the room.
Nah.
There's a lot of power.
That's a whole threat to you.
A lot of power in the word check.
Because you know
so
what?
if someone gives you some information that's hard to download and you don't have anything else, but you know they're right, and that's the end of the conversation, check.
And you know why that's the case? You know why it works in our community, where I could bring a word of correction to him and he not get offended, and vice versa, is because we're secure in who we are.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of that, oh, you offended me with this email. Oh, why'd you call me up? Man, shut up. But a lot of that, I'm telling you, I get it. A lot of that stuff comes from it's your insecurity.
Yeah.
Because if you do your job correctly, if you're on point with what you do, and you will be more secure with your role and who you are.
Yeah, yeah.
So if somebody sends an email, whether it's a word of correction or maybe it's a misunderstanding, you're not going to quickly respond like, what do you mean I didn't do this, blah, blah. You're going to be like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Or you're going to pick up the phone and be like, hey, I just want to make sure that, you know, I'm understanding this correctly.
Yeah.
But a lot of it starts with that person's, the security. Do they have security with who they are and the job that they do?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And so because a lot of people don't, a lot of these issues, going back to, and I keep saying, it has to be handled in a room, face to face, so that we can have a heart to heart. So you could feel my presence, you could feel my energy, you could feel that I am not trying to hurt you or disrespect you.
And I would also guess that in corporate world, like it's something that you just have to kind of weed out.
Yeah.
You know, there's certain people that are just insecure and act that way, and it's going to be hard to teach them not to. You know, depending on what type of culture you're trying to build.
Yeah.
Well, some. I mean, you can definitely weed out. You look for cancer for sure.
Yeah.
But then you should always look for opportunities to develop, right?
Yeah.
And I think one thing that we're talking about, like, what makes you able to be authentic? What makes you able to be blunt? What makes you able to pick up the phone and actually have a conversation instead of defaulting to the laziest form of communications available to man? Mm-hmm. One thing that makes all these things easier and approachable is if the team has a shared vision. If everyone understands what we're moving towards, then it becomes really easy to pick apart how we're going to get there. And they're not challenging you, they're challenging the success of the company and the vision. So when we're prepping for a mission right now and we're going out and I have this plan, I'm saying, hey, let's hit it this way. And Remi has information that I don't have. You think I want him to sit on that? No, he's going to bring it to me because we have a shared vision. It's about objectivity and what we're going to accomplish.
Yeah.
It's not about me.
Yeah.
It's not about Remi. It's about what we're going to accomplish.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, I keep jumping back on this topic, but going back to the leadership aspect, right? I know we're using the email thing as an example. Like as a leader of a team, like we have to know how to manage that team, and we have to know. One thing that I try to teach is the importance of knowing your teammates. Yeah. Right. Not just knowing their job roles but having an intimate knowledge of who they are so that you could effectively lead them. Yeah. Right. Where if person A sends an email to person B and you're on that chain and person B is offended, then maybe as a leader, and I'm not saying this to you, I'm just using this example, as a leader, we take a step back and we say, okay, I recognize that this person has a hard time receiving. So let me go to person A and say, hey, check this out. So-and-so's a great employee. We know that they may have a hard time with the way they receive information, but that doesn't take away from who this person is. Yeah. How about, I don't want you to respond to them on an open email. Just respond to them so that they don't get hurt. How can we as leaders massage the situation so that because we know how a response is going to come about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm just such a fan of a world which sounds like your guys' world, where you just know that nobody meant any way by it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just authenticity. And that I'm just such a fan of it.
Yeah.
Of the way that I would love to get to a point where I can teach it and hire for it and cultivate it.
Yeah.
Because I truly operate that way.
Yeah.
Like I want the truth because the other thing is not good for me.
It was a waste of time.
Yeah, and it's like I don't want people to be. And I even hate in the office when people treat me like I'm the boss, so they don't tell me things.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, hey, this thing is tanking. We're having a real problem over here, but don't tell him because we're going to try to fix it.
Yeah.
And like I had a guy, I'll just be super honest, I had a guy quit recently who quit because he was trying to solve a problem without telling me that I could have solved in an hour. Yeah. And it drove him so nuts that he quit instead of telling me.
That's tragic.
And it's like, that's not the type of culture I want to create, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question if you don't mind. I don't mean this.
Please,
I
ask
don't
me
mean this in any type of way. Do you feel like it's the way you carry yourself amongst a team that causes them to not be willing to approach you? Or?
I have questioned it sometimes, but I really hope not. And I'm trying to think of ways, like my door's open. Yeah. Everyone knows they can talk to me at any time. I make jokes. I try to congratulate when people openly work out problems. Yeah. I try, and maybe I need some, I need some maybe training or guidance on how to make sure that I'm not doing that. Yeah. But I also think some people just operate by this, like, don't question, look good. As long as you look good as an employee and don't disrespect the boss and don't blah, 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 that's how you're going to make your way up.
So what
this
efforts
ladder.
have you taken to frame it in a way that you can kind of like in a conversation, you start a conversation, everyone's bringing their own stuff to that conversation. Yeah. And it's all hypothetical, none of it's real. But if you frame that conversation up front, like, hey, here's what this is, here's what we're doing, and then you move in, you save a lot of time, right? Yeah. So you can frame relationships that same way. Yeah. Like, have you tried to do that? Hey, by the way, our culture here is we welcome dissent. We want pushback. Like, here's what too much looks like. Yep. And kind of have that conversation up front.
I have, but not enough.
Yeah.
That's what I need to do more of. Yeah. That's why I was asking, like, how you guys, like, how do they train it into you? Is it just, but it's just so thoroughly part of the culture, right?
Yeah,
so they break us down first. That's the thing.
It's part
so like
of
when you're hyping out and you're sitting there next to each other, freezing and just like, get closer, man. I'm freezing over here. Like, that'll break you down to the point that, like, you can't. It's not possible to impress each other after that.
Yeah. I got to work on it.
And a lot of it is empowerment too. And in the businesses that me and my assistant work in, you know, one thing we find is that the person at the top, and I got to be, and again, I'm trying to be vague because I don't want one of these companies to listen to this podcast and be like, Remi talking about us. No, I ain't talking about you.
Yeah.
We find that the people at the top, they don't want to really empower the second level of leadership, right? And because the second level of leadership is not really empowered, then they're the ones that are putting this pressure on the foot soldiers to be on time, be perfect. Don't go to the boss. Don't do this. Don't do that. Whereas if the person at the top really empowered that second level of leadership and really pressed upon them that I as the leader, I am flexible. People can come to me and have a conversation with me, then that'll trickle down. Right. But if that second level of leadership is not empowered, they're not going to try and empower their people, and they're not going to give their people that room to feel comfortable enough to come to you. You know, and in our community, you know, the CEO of the command empowers the troop commanders. The troop commanders empower the platoon commanders. The platoon commanders empower the chiefs. The chiefs empower the LPOs. The LPOs empower the squad leaders. The squad leaders empower, and it goes all the way down to the bottom.
And are you allowed to correct or call out a mistake of someone above you?
I can speak
Like
from
if you were
my
on a
experience.
mission
I
and-
can speak from my experience in
to
a
mine as
platoon.
well.
In a platoon, yes, I've seen a LPO call out a chief.
Yeah.
I've seen an LPO and a chief call out an OIC, and OIC being an officer. And it wasn't to shame them; it was because it's necessary at times. Now, does it happen every single day? No, it doesn't happen every single day, but it's done in a respectful way as well. I've been called out by people below me, you know, which is okay. You know what I mean? And that's something I tell my assistant all the time. He knows this. I tell him, yo, bro, if I'm messing up, tell me, man. Like, you tell me. Don't let me send or email. Don't let me say anything. Don't let me do something and that could hurt our business or hurt what we're moving. I try to empower him, and I think that, you know, that comes from the community that I came from. So when I hired him and I hire people to work for me, it's just naturally for me to tell them, hey, listen, if you see me, yes, I cut the check, but if you see me messing up, you need to tell me. Don't be afraid to. And he tells me all the time.
What about you, Nick?
Yeah, just to kind of add on that too, because I think an important distinction is this happening publicly or privately?
Yeah, it's the way it has to be done.
So when we're talking about keeping things at the lowest level, that means the first conversation is a private conversation. Because to do it publicly would definitely show that you have political aspirations in the room. You're trying to dismantle a dominance hierarchy. And anyone who's not threatened by that is just not understanding the game. So you definitely want to hit that face-to-face conversation, lowest level, and then grow together. And then there's a time when you need to step up. You know what I'm saying? But it's
so if it's handled right, nobody.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we do really well. Is, I mean, I'm not going to get called out in front of the group unless I'm either a new guy and it's hilarious, or like it's worth doing. Hey, we got to keep this guy in check. But I've been completely destroyed offline by someone who I have tremendous respect for. I'll never forget my first platoon chief, my mentor, Jim Boa, great dude, man. But there was a couple times that he just let me have it, and he unloaded, and he gave me some really harsh punishments over the years too. But it was in private. It was between me and him, because his job was to develop me, and there was no way that he was going to be able to develop me unless he instilled that trust. It came from relationship.
Remi, what's your answer?
Wow. Oh,
I didn't forget.
What was the question again? Sorry.
It was, if you could give one thing that you learned, he picked authenticity, one thing that you learned through all your training that to everyone, that everyone needs. Everyone could be a little bit better if they just had this thing. What would that be?
I would say acceptance of failure.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Acceptance of failure.
How do you guys treat that?
Well, my whole book is a book about failure. I wrote it, you know, the way I tried to write it, I tried to write it as a journey story. And when you read it, you will see that there was failure after failure after failure after failure after failure. But one thing that you will also see is how I learned to take those failures and turn them into lessons, and then take those lessons and turn them into successes. Yeah. So often people fail and they think that, okay, woe is me, I give up, there will be no moving forward in this particular area I was trying to move forward in, and they close that door on themselves. Yeah. Instead of, an example that I'll use is I got kicked out of SEAL training. I mean, me in Nick's class, I got completely kicked out. We were in dive phase. I failed my swims in first phase after we made it through Hell Week. And then I was performance road 2 classes where they worked with me to kind of get the 2 mile time notion swim down. Me and Nick classed back up in 253 together after 253 finished Hell Week. I went to dive phase. I got prideful. In my mind, I was just like, here, I'm this kid from Africa, made it through the Bronx, made it through Hell Week. Like Kanye West song said, you can't tell me nothing. That was my mindset, And so I got cocky. I was out there partying, hanging out with girls, hooking up with girls, doing all of these things and not working on what I needed to work on. And the swim times dropped from 85 minutes to 80 minutes in second phase. I failed my first 2 swims because I wasn't showing up on the weekend working on my craft. And then I got to pool week, which is dive phase, and I failed this evolution called the tread 4 times. And the tread is, it's a horrible evolution. You have twin 80 dive tanks on your back, a weight belt on, you have all this dive gear on, you got to keep your hands above water, and you got to kick for 5 minutes. And it literally feels like you're drowning.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing in the world.
It's horrible. A lot of cats are like, oh, it's not. No, it's horrible. I'm dense. I'm negative in the water, and my legs weren't as strong as they should have been at the time. But it literally feels like you're drowning. Yeah. And I failed that 4 times, and I went to an ARB board, and they kicked me out. And I remember I went to that ARB board, and the instructor said, Remi, you failed X, Y, and Z. We have to kick you out. Do you have anything to say? And that was the first time in my adult life I took responsibility. And I said to them, you know what? I deserve to be kicked out of this program. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I partied on the weekend. I hope that you guys will give me a chance to come back in the future. The very next day after I got kicked out of SEAL training, I was in the pool. And I took that failure and I turned it into a lesson. The lesson for me was you will work on whatever it is that you need to work on until you have mastered it. And then after you have mastered it, you will work on it some more and some more. And the very next day after I got kicked out of training, I was in the pool. And I didn't know if I was going to get a chance to go back to SEAL training because I was getting sent to the infantry, 1st Marine Division up at Camp Pendleton. I was a doc. I was a corpsman. The wars were hot and heavy. A lot of Marines were getting killed. A lot of corpsmen were getting killed or permanently injured. So I didn't know if I was going to get back. But I just trained every single day. And a year and a half later, I was accepted back into the program. And I had to start all over from day one, go through Hell Week all over again, go through first phase all over again. And it sucked. Yeah. But I did. And I eventually, obviously, I made it through. But again, that whole piece taught me that, failure is only a failure if you don't learn from it. But if you learn from it, if you learn from it, it's a lesson, and that lesson can be turned into success. And so there are times when we have to be able to accept that failure, but along with accepting that failure, accepting that responsibility. Not blaming this person, not blaming that. Take ownership and responsibility. And once you do that, then you can begin to derive those lessons to move forward. So that would be my big piece now, acceptance of failure.
Yeah, those are 2 great ones. Okay, one more on that vein, and then we talked about this a little bit on the phone, Nick, is like, I think, so there's always the question of like, is this stuff born or made? And there's these different type of things, right? I personally believe that almost everyone has a greater level that they could be living if only they would go try to find it, right? Or something would come into their life. Some people face this weird moment of adversity that they have to make it through, and now all of a sudden they know that they can handle more. Or some people are lucky and kind of find it or whatever. Some don't ever. And I think it's, to be honest, not to be dramatic, I think it's the center of a lot of depression and drug use sometimes and violence and pointless bullshit is this like, you're never finding that thing that you can work towards or finding who you could truly be. My question for both of you guys is, do you have any advice for how someone maybe listening to this right now that says, man, like, I wish I would have tried to make it through Hell Week, or I wish I would have been, maybe they're too old, maybe it's the opportunity's passed, right? But they want something that can kind of wake them up and transform them. Any advice on what that could be? How to spark that thing inside of yourself that realizes you can be that accountable and that?
I definitely think the three of us have a lot in common in a couple of ways when we're talking about where we came from and then where we got to.
Yeah.
And if we look at our journeys, they start maybe somewhere with, smaller town mindset. Maybe, there's these limitations that are built into that. Hey, you're from here. There's no way you can get that done. When I was living in Memphis, or technically like Olive Branch, Mississippi. You say Olive Branch, Mississippi, everyone knows that's Mayberry. That's like small town.
Yeah.
You guys had a horse there too?
Yeah, that's much better.
Just the one horse? No one there believed in my vision. No one there thought that I could accomplish that. And I lived with that for a little while, but I wasn't going to let someone else tell me what I can accomplish. I knew that I had to get out of there. I knew that I had to change my environment if I was ever going to see my possibilities. I think the two things that you got to change if you're going to, if something ain't right, and something has to change. The two go-tos, man, are change your environment. That could be in the moment, right? That could be changing the music that you listen to. I used to, when I got out of the military, I was a little bit violent, and I was struggling with that. So I stopped listening to metal. I started listening to really happy music, and I learned how to take control of my mind, right? It's amazing what you can do just by going for a walk, getting outside, getting that vitamin D. Just changing your environment in the micro does so much for you. But could you have done any of this if you didn't come out to LA, right? No way, man. I couldn't have done anything that I did if I didn't go to San Diego. Yep. So one, I had to change my environment. Two, man, I had to change the people that I was hanging around. I love that quote. I think it's Stephen Covey where he says, you're the sum of the top 5 people that you're spending time with.
Yep.
I know that's true. The reason why I've been able to accomplish some pretty cool things in my life is because I'm surrounded by some pretty cool people.
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by people that challenge me each and every day. I started in Olive Branch, Mississippi, and then I ended up becoming a Navy SEAL, going to Harvard Business School, doing this stuff that just sounds ridiculous. It sounds like I'm lying. I can't bring that stuff up in conversation. People still wouldn't believe me. Yeah. They'd still think I'm full of it, man.
Yeah.
You just can't listen to other people's opinions. And right now, like if someone's standing in your way, if someone doesn't get your vision, it doesn't mean you can't do it. You just can't do it with them. Find some people that are going to move forward and crush these barriers side by side with you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. Remi?
I'm going to ask you to just give me more context with that question.
Yeah, so what I'm
sure
saying is like, some people have a natural drive to go out there and find out what they're truly capable of.
Yeah, yeah.
Some people, some moment happens in their life and they have no choice but to do it. But through that moment, they realize that they're capable of more than what they are, right? Yeah. My question is like, I've met a lot of people that are sitting and they're frustrated and they know they could be more, but they don't have that thing to push them. What would you tell them to go do? Is there anything like, is it make a challenge with yourself that you can't do this by that date, or go sign up for this thing, or like, is there anything you can think of that could spark?
Well, maybe I'll kind of phrase it so I could answer more accurately and hone in on it more, but a kid asked me the other day, because I work with a nonprofit called La Mesa City Hope, and I work with inner city kids and at-risk kids and juveniles and stuff. And this one kid asked me, he said, Remi, I keep getting in trouble and I'm trying to be disciplined. How can I become more disciplined?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that this question is similar to
yeah, like even it's exactly like to answer that vein.
And so I said to him, I said, listen, I said, do the hard things that you don't want to do consistently. And the example that I gave him, I said, when you get your next report or your next project for school, and let's say today's Monday, and you get that project and it's due Friday, try to do it on Monday, all of it. Challenge yourself. Just commit to yourself that you are going to take that report or whatever it is, stay up till 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, do the research and knock it out. And then when you get the next project, do the same thing. When you get your next homework assignment, even if it's due tomorrow, as soon as you get home, sit at your desk and knock it out. And it's going to be consistently challenging yourself, putting the pressure on yourself that's going to help you be more disciplined so that you can gain that discipline. I'm not sure if that's answers your question, but
No, it does. It does.
It's just.
So would you say in your mind that transformation is directly on the other side of discipline? Is discipline the key to transforming yourself?
It plays a significant role in transforming yourself.
Yeah.
I believe that it plays a significant role. I mean, it played a significant role in me being transformed, my discipline, right? Like we could just look at the whole me checking into my first command and being skinny and not having a car and not being able to swim and not having the academic scores. It took a whole lot of discipline for me to transform from a 150-pound skinny dude to a 190-pound ripped up cat who didn't recognize himself in the mirror 6 months later. Yeah. Right. So it took discipline to transform me. So just discipline yourself, challenge yourself.
Can I add to that too? Because what you're talking about with discipline, part of that is like when you make a pact with yourself, you're keeping it, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, I'm going to do something that's extraordinary, and I'm going to keep a promise to myself.
Yeah.
And what that does over time, this is where discipline comes from. When I've kept that promise with myself over and over again, I begin to trust myself.
Yeah.
I know if I tell myself I can do something, I can do that something.
Yeah.
Right? That's the power of discipline.
Yeah.
Because you keep your promises to yourself.
Yeah.
So 100%, that is where transformation comes from, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and another while just in the writing process of my book, I didn't have a ghostwriter. I wrote the book myself, and it was hard. It was extremely hard because it's a long book. It's a lot of content. There's a lot of story arcs. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of, there's just a lot going on. And I had a deadline that my publisher gave me. And they said, your book must be in on March 15th or you will be in breach of contract.
Yeah.
I said to myself, I'm not going to turn it in on March 15th. I'm going to turn it in on March 8th.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn it in a week before. By me putting that pressure on myself, that just kind of honed that discipline within me. So then when other things came along, and as it relates to writing, because we're just talking about writing, because writing is different from doing push-ups and swimming. It's a whole nother situation. Yeah. So when I disciplined myself in the area of writing, I kind of built these calluses. Yep. So now, I'm signed to a production company / management company out here called Zero Gravity. They produce Ozark and The Accountant and a bunch of other stuff. When they give me, and my assistant will tell you, when they give me deadlines, I tell them on the phone all the time, I'm like, dude, you want me to give you this next week? I'm going to be done in a day and a half. Yeah. And they're like, oh, no. I'm like, no, I'm going to be done in a day and a half.
Yeah.
It's just natural for me to be done in a day and a half when they give me 4 days to turn in the script rewrite.
Yeah.
Right? Because I had built up those but it took me taking the time to build up those calluses on my own and not having somebody put the pressure. I don't like people putting pressure on me.
Yeah. Right.
I like putting pressure on myself. Yeah. Because when I put pressure on myself, I get it done, and I get it done fast. Yeah. And I get it done right. People put pressure on me, I still get it done, but I just like to challenge myself more.
I get it.
The way I kind of say that is like, you always want to under promise and over deliver.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's fine as long as you're meeting or exceeding people's expectations. That's fine. But if you're exceeding your own, and you demand nothing less than the best that you can possibly do, then there's no reason to promise it up front. Hey, here's what they expect. Check. I'm gonna see that and raise you.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, last big one because we're going long. Sorry, man, I'm keeping you guys up.
Nah, you good.
Keeping you guys up. If you could prescribe anything that the world has to do for 30 days, what would you prescribe? So you say you have to do, it can be anything.
You're saying the whole world, like every single person on the face of the planet?
It's like, listen, the world, everyone in the world has to do whatever you say for 30 days consecutively.
Oh, wow.
What would you have them do? It can literally be anything. It can be like
Hold your breath.
Call your mom and tell her you love her. It could be do 100 push-ups. It could be hold your breath. Hold your breath as long as you can.
That's a great question. Let's see. I would say, and this will sound like a cliche answer, but I would say truly be open to listening to a group, a spouse, a family member, a friend, or person you cannot stand without the inclination to respond. Just listen. Immerse yourself. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna just add context to this answer. I was on a podcast the other day, and the host of the podcast, he's a Caucasian guy, and he adopted an African American kid from the inner city, and he said to me, he said, you know, Remi, you're an African American kid. I'm really trying to understand this inner city concept. I don't like just the idea what it means to be a black kid growing up in America. I don't get it. I'm his dad, and I don't know how to do it. And I told him, I said, immerse yourself in the culture.
Yeah.
I told him, I can't remember if I told him 2 weeks or 30 days, but I told him for a significant amount of time. Go to the inner city that kid came from and spend time there. See what it was like, not to speak, not to give advice, not to teach, just to observe and listen and see what it's like to grow up in that environment. Yeah. And as you observe and as you listen, then you will be able to empathize more and you'll be able to connect more with your son.
Yeah.
You know, so if I could prescribe one thing, it's that. Yeah. You know, go to that environment, go to that person that you're opposed to or you don't have full understanding of, and listen. Yeah. You know.
Nick?
You want me to top that? That was some good
I mean, it's going to be hard.
I thought you were a philosophy guy, man. I'm a philosophy guy.
Why?
Yeah, it's true.
So, I mean, if I was going to say, one, I want to talk about something that I think is deficient. So I think it's a good need to meet. People are too comfortable. People are getting weak, and people don't like challenge. This is a problem. If I said, hey, do something every day for the next 30 days, I'm not going to say exactly what it is. I'm just going to say it's whatever's making you uncomfortable. It's whatever you're intimidated by.
Yeah.
Do that.
That's good.
Once a day. Every day. Maybe not the same thing. Maybe it's different every day. The point isn't that. It's a workout, man. If you want to get strong, you get to the gym. You want to learn how to play guitar? Guess what? You need calluses on your fingers. It's the only way you can withstand the pressure of the strings.
Yeah.
Right? Do something that sucks every single day, and you might just become comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's an improvement.
Yeah.
You start to strive for the challenge. You start to look for the things like... There's a great book, Carol Dweck wrote, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. You've read this?
So good, yep.
So good, dude. But like growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
It's like you start, okay, well, that process, it's not about the outcome, it's about the process. That process worked when I was in cold water. That process worked when, it doesn't matter. I wonder if I can use that same process here. Well, it worked there. I wonder if I can use it there. Yeah. My identity is not in question. Yeah. It's not about my comfort. It's not about anything else. It's about the curiosity. It's about the joy of playing the game, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what you get when you break through these limitations of comfort.
Yep, I get it. Okay, why don't you both end me off with what each of your books are about, what you're sort of, because what I love about this too is you both went through such a similar experience. Yeah. You have slightly different ways of using it to empower other people. Yeah. So why don't you each kind of give me the breakdown of what the book's about, what your sort of message is, and where to find each of you. Yeah. And let everyone know. Yeah. Nick, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, so I had seen some basic principles that just, they weren't common everywhere I'd been, you know. I noticed that I saw these things in the SEAL teams, but I saw them at Harvard. I saw them in professional sports teams that I'd been working with. And it was just consistent across the board. So I said, hey, you know what? Let's combine these like 13 principles. That really stuck out to me. I started with like 20, and then I started dialing them in, you know. And I said, let's do this thing to where I can say, I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to say, here's where I learned it. Here's where it worked for me. Yeah. Right? And then I'm going to go into the science behind it. And here's some justification. Here's where it comes from. Maybe it's mine, maybe it's not. Regardless, here's what you can do with it right now. And here's some practical application. Yeah. The book is written for the reader, not the author, right? So there is a little bit of memoir. Those stories where I'm saying, hey, it worked for me here, that's powerful stuff. It's hard to argue with that kind of experience. Yeah. So I did that for credibility, but the point is it's called Elite, and I really want the people reading it to understand that they can become elite. Yeah. They can work and operate at that level. And the only thing holding them back is a little bit of structure in their lives and a different viewpoint, different mindset. Yeah. And it's things that you can practice. So I put that together into a book. I got it published, and it's been way too much fun, man. This entire thing has just been.
And when's your book come out?
May 29th.
Got it. And you just recorded the audiobook. Both of you guys just did your audiobooks.
Yeah, I did my 2
Which was a good discipline. It was like Hell Week all over again.
Something that sucks every day. Yeah.
And where do people find you, Nick? Do you have social media?
Social media, I'm Nick Hayes Life. My company, which I do consulting for corporations, professional athletics, collegiate athletics, it's eliteteams.com. Perfect. So feel free to reach out. There's a place to reach out on the site.
Done. Remi?
Yeah. My book is my story. It's a journey story. So often in a lot of special operations books, you get the B, right? You get the missions, you get all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I wanted to go to A. I wanted to show people what it took for me to get from A to B and then get from B to C, because my story is, being a SEAL is just a small part of my overall journey story. So what I want people to get out of it is, one, again, what I mentioned earlier, a failure is only a failure if you don't learn from it. Two, I wanted people to be able to read this book and say, wow, I have odds in my life that there are certain things that I can't get over, but if Remi could do it, then I could do it, And then a big thing is second chances in the book, and the importance of administering second chances, especially to those who you don't feel deserve it, because throughout the entire book, there were people that just gave me second chances. Yeah. From my mom to the recruiter who snuck me into the Navy, to my LPO, my first command at the hospital, to, the list goes on and on and on, and paying it forward, So as I said earlier, 99.9% of people will never, ever be a Navy SEAL. Yeah. And so if I wrote a Navy SEAL book, then I would just be writing it to entertain people, and I'm not in the business of entertaining people with my life. Yeah. But 99.9% of people will come up against an obstacle, will lose a loved one, will face adversity, and that's who the book is written for. So.
And when's yours come out?
Transform releases May 14th. Yeah. So
back to back
next week.
Yeah,
next week.
And where do people find you on social media? And
Remi Adeleke. Adeleke, and
we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, but Remi Adeleke on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Perfect. I'm on all the platforms. I was lucky I didn't have to add the real Remi Adeleke. Official Remi Adeleke. It's just Remi Adeleke. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Listen, thank you guys so much. Thanks for coming and doing this. Thanks for the long. This was a marathon of a pod, but it's just good. Packed with good stuff. So I really appreciate you sharing the story and all the gems, and can't wait to read the books. And
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you for having us on, brother.
Great.
Yes, sir.
There it is. That's a wrap.
Yes, sir.
Guys, if you like that and you want to see more like it, as well as vlogs, other web series, and all the random stuff that I'm doing here on YouTube, don't forget to click that subscribe button. You won't regret it, I promise.